Okay, this is a short video about the ONOS GUI2 work that's going on in the ONOS project. So there's a set of slides here that explain some of the rationale from going from the old GUI to the new one, and really the reason is to be able to avail of the Angular 6 framework. Angular 1, which is what the old GUI is built on, is now obsolete, and you might see that referred to as AngularJS. So the new Angular framework, which is at version 6, is just called Angular, so you'll find documentation on it at angular.io. So some of the reasons for going with Angular 6 are, well, it's a modern sort of well kept and maintained framework for running applications on and building applications with, and there's a lot of tooling that comes with it that wasn't there in the days of AngularJS. So in ONOS we decided we'd try to take advantage of these. For any new applications we want to build them on top of Angular 6. So I'll give the link to this slide set at the end of the presentation. But really, let's just have a look at what's involved in upgrading to Angular 6. So a lot of the existing code for running the ONOS GUI is very complex, and really it does a tremendously complex job. It's amazing what was done with the original version of the GUI. So I think the objective was to mimic the old GUI as much as possible and just migrate the code. And inside the ONOS project itself, what we wanted to do is try and keep the old GUI in place while we build the new GUI, because it takes a certain amount of time to build it, and we wanted to be able to run the two in parallel. So you'll see under web there's a GUI and there's a GUI2 project, and the GUI2 project basically is built using Angular CLI, which is a command line tool for managing Angular. And what we've done is a lot of integration between Buck, the build system for ONOS, and this Angular CLI tool. You know, the Buck file basically is calling all of these commands for calling Angular CLI. So for instance, ng is the Angular CLI tool. Here we're doing test, here we're doing build, and so on like this, and lint, and all of that level of integration is done. What was involved in migrating? So basically the old GUI, if we just look at in particular the say the device view, you know, there was a JavaScript file there, and it's I have it open here. Basically what it is it's using Angular 1 type constructs in a JS file. So basically you know, you declared everything really was a function, and it's complete functional programming. So here, for instance, this was a function that was called with the constructor to all of the methods, whereas the approach in Angular 6 is basically everything is written in TypeScript as opposed to JavaScript, and then it's compiled to JavaScript, and it takes a much more object-oriented approach. So you can see that here we define a class, here we've got annotations, you know, here we're extending a class, and we're overriding methods here, for instance, like ng on init and destroy, and all of this. So as you can see, you know, there was a fair amount of migration from the style of AngularJS across to the style of Angular 6 and TypeScript and all of that. And the benefits of TypeScript are huge. And basically what it does, it allows you to write more robust code, because variables are strongly typed. And this is one of the big advantages that I think that Angular 6 and TypeScript and everything like that brings. So quickly I'll just switch to the command line. I have Mininet there running to give me a network. Here I have ONOS running, and I just have run feature install GUI2, and now here I'm ready to log in at GUI2. So the URL is UI2, and the login is exactly the same, and very little of the back end of the Java side of ONOS was changed to make this work. So here we'll log in, and what we've completed at the moment is the tabular views. So for instance, we've got applications, and it's not showing the icons for them at the moment. I'll have to investigate why that is. But basically, it's got all of the functions and features that the old GUI had. For instance, you click on the application, and the details panel flies in from the right hand side. You click on another one, it changes it. All of the buttons here are working. You can stop and start the application. For instance, we can stop it there. You're seeing the text here in French because I chose the French locale when I started ONOS. I'm going to cancel that one and close that window, and all of the menus here are using that line function, as it's called, and not all of the applications. For instance, the devices application isn't fully kitted out with the line functionality, but most of the framework features of ONOS are in place with it at the moment. This is a list of devices, and here you can see the details view again. You can click on the ports, the flows and all of that kind of stuff as you could before. So here we've added the search field to the devices view, and we made some minor tweaks. So the big obvious thing that isn't here is the topology view, and we wanted to tackle some of the tabular views before we'd jump into the topology view, but that's one of the big deliverables for the Peacock release. So there's I think other things we want to do on the Peacock release is build the thing with the Bazel build system, and then also to tackle other GUIs that can be loaded dynamically, like the Yang GUI and various other GUIs that people have built in applications external to the core ONOS GUI applications. So that's probably a lot of what I had to say. There is a lot more documentation available. If you go to the code base, here, for instance, for the GUI2, there's a README, that explains a lot of what I've shown, how to start ONOS in a foreign locale, and how to develop with it then using the Angular CLI. But the Angular CLI, I didn't get into it, but very powerful tool. When you go into the GUI2 folder and run npm install, you'll be able to access the ng tool from there. And if you're in development, what this allows you to do is it basically allows you to serve up the GUI and develop it, and as you make changes in the IDE, those changes are compiled immediately and reflected in a local version of the GUI that you can run there and then, even in parallel to the GUI that's run inside of ONOS. So there's all of these commands like ng build, for instance. There's also other tools for Compodoc. Compodoc is a documentation tool that can work with Angular CLI, and it produces Java doc type documentation for all of the components that you have built in the Angular framework. So like the Angular framework. It has a lot of there's a lot of logical structure to it, you know. So for instance, you know, everything is a component. There are components, devices, pipes, directives are the kind of primitives that Angular works off. But the component is the anchor kind of thing. So it's like a library unit that you can reuse. So we build the ONOS GUI as a component, but also we build the device details panel as a component. And you know, even as we build it, you know, we're extending a base class that's common across all details panels. So you know, a lot of object-oriented approach going on there. Okay, so this was the set of links that to the slides and to the README that I showed. So thanks very much for watching, and hopefully we'll have another update at the end of the Peacock release.